These last two games for the Marlins were just crazy. I'm going to break it all down on today's show.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I've been podcasting about the Marlins for 3 seasons now. Go hit me up on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Plenty to break down in this episode. It's been late. The late games in San Diego. I couldn't stay up and do a podcast immediately after. So I'm going to be talking about yesterday's game and today's game, which just ended, in which the Marlins won. I'm going to talk about Sandy Alcantara. I'm going to talk about Ronny Simon. Agustin Ramirez, with the game of his life, leads the Marlins to victory, and they end up salvaging a much-needed victory and getting out of Petco Park, getting out of San Diego with a win. Let's start with yesterday's game. So the Marlins jump out to a 6-0 lead in the first inning. And it felt like they were going to win that game. Stephen Kolek, ironically, the younger brother of former Marlins draft pick and infamously a draft bust, Tyler Kolek, he was the starter for the Padres. The Marlins jumped all over him, base hit after base hit. Just really good at-bats by the Fish, and they were up 6-0. If you're up 6-0, you should win that game. The Marlins go on to lose that one 8-6. The story of that game, though, Ronny Simon. Ronny Simon, I felt so bad for him watching the TV broadcast. It was really tough to watch. 3 errors. It was originally 4, but they changed the error to a base hit. He ends up getting pulled from the game. At one point, you can see on the television, he's crying on the field. It wasn't his night. And that's what led to a lot of those runs for the Padres and allowed them to climb back into it. Max Meyer, it was a forgettable start from him. He went 3 1/3, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, gave up 6 runs, but because of those errors, it was 4 earned runs. Still not very good. Didn't strike out anyone. You don't like seeing that. A pitcher that has that elite of a slider can't manage to get the whiffs or get the Ks. It's not good. And that's kind of lost. That was lost for the story of the night. The story of the night was Ronny Simon. The pure emotion that Ronny showed on that field. I want guys like that playing for the Marlins. Ronny cares. And I have that typed up on the show rundown. Keep your head up, Ronny, because these games happen. Players have bad games. It just happens. It's the nature of the sport. You'd be hard-pressed not to find a player throughout their entire career that just had one really awful game. Simon has worked his whole life to make the major leagues. He finally breaks through, gets an opportunity in Miami, and unfortunately, he just didn't make some plays. You know, it's bigger than baseball. He's the one that made those errors. No one feels worse about that performance than Ronny Simon did. And you could see the emotion on his face. But what I want to point out is that when he goes off the field, he goes straight into the clubhouse. He just had to compose himself, I'm sure. Teammates were following after him. And then you can see assistant pitching coach, hope I pronounced his name right, Alan Leichman, and Derek Hill talking to him right against the fence at the dugout, and they're just encouraging him. They're joking around. They're saying, we got you, man. That's what I love to see. That's leadership. Picking your brother up when he's at his lowest moment on the baseball field. And here's the other part of this. Look, Ronny Simon, yeah, he made some bad plays. He had to be taken out. It looked like he had the yips. After his second or second error, yeah, I think it was after his second error, there's a ball hit to him at second, routine double play, just throws it over the shortstop's head. At that point, I knew Simon's completely in his head. But I loved seeing Derek Hill, one of the veterans, one of the mentors on this Marlins team. Maybe not in terms of playing time and experience as a major leaguer, but he's been around the game. He's seen professional baseball for a long time. And he talked to Ronny, and there was a lot of outpouring of support from around the league. Tatis, you had Luis Arias, even Padres fans on Twitter. They weren't bashing the guy from what I saw. They were supporting him. Everybody wants Ronny Simon to have a great career. This game is in the past now. You move forward. But it wasn't just the errors, as I was saying. The Marlins put up 6 runs in the first inning, remember. They didn't score it again. They went 8 straight innings without plating a single run. That can't happen. You go back to the first game of the series. You score 1 in the first, 2 in the second. The game goes to the 11th inning. You went 9 innings scoreless. So yes, the Padres came back and won it. The Marlins opened the door for them to win this game. But the offense could have done more. There is no doubt about that. You can't go cold after you start off so hot like that. 6 runs, you're seeing the ball well, you have good approaches at the plate. The swings are good. You're going the other way. And then all of a sudden, that just doesn't exist anymore. And Stephen Kolek, who on any given start like this around the league, Stephen Kolek is probably done after 2 or 3 innings. You give up 6 runs in the first. I would bet a lot of money that you're not pitching into the 6th, and that's exactly what happened. He threw up zeros the rest of the way. 5 1/3 innings. Those 6 runs all in the first. Can't happen. Marlins offense has to be better than that. That was a disappointing game. It was an emotional game for a lot of reasons. But the one other thing that I can take away from this, the Max Meyer problem, I'm going to start to call it a problem, is becoming evident. He's not dominant. He's in a rough stretch. And just the eye test tells me all I need to know. He didn't get a single strikeout. 3 1/3 inning. Something isn't right with his location, with his pitch sequencing, because this is a different pitcher than I saw strike out 14 Cincinnati Reds. He was absolutely dialed in that game. And it has to go back to somewhere in between. At the beginning of the year, he was one of the most consistent. No, he was the most consistent Marlins starter. And he's hit a rough patch. So he's got to get back in the lab with pitching coach Daniel Moscas. He's got to go to the drawing board and just reevaluate, rebound for his next start. The talent's there. We saw it in spring training. We saw it at the beginning of the season. He's got to refine himself moving forward. He's looking a lot like the 2024 version of Max Meyer, and I don't like that. He's too talented of a pitcher to have this rough stretch continue on without making adjustments. Doesn't have to be drastic adjustments, but just work with the pitching coach and see what you can tweak in order to get back to your true top-tier potential. The Marlins did win the last game of the series on Wednesday. It was an awesome game. There's a lot to talk about from this one. I'm glad that the Marlins got out of San Diego with a victory. It always sucks when you get swept. So I'm going to talk about that game, talk about Sandy Alcantara, because much like Max Meyer, he also didn't strike out a batter. That's coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all my money go? Whether you're dining out, you're shopping, you're watching a movie, maybe the new Sinners movie that came out a couple weeks ago, it's easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Monarch Money is great for, let's say you really like Uber Eats, or you're just hungry, you want to get a snack, and it's really easy to go on Uber Eats or DoorDash, and sometimes you don't realize how much you're really spending. I know that can happen to me, where I'll be hungry, I'm like, you know what, let me just DoorDash something, and it adds up. And I've noticed that it adds up. But Monarch Money is going to help you budget that, and you're going to save a lot more money. And instead of juggling all those multiple apps, you could just use Monarch to track it all. Your finances, your spending, and you can even plan goals for spending your money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's half off, guys. Half off your first year if you use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. If you are an everyday listener to Locked On Marlins, I appreciate you for being part of the Locked On Marlins crew. And please share the podcast with any of your Marlins friends, anyone that loves Marlins baseball. This is the spot to get it. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast on all the streaming platforms. This last game of the series was crazy. There's no other way to describe it except back and forth. Just a wild, wild game. Sandy Alcantara. We got to start with Sandy, though. Sandy Alcantara is not the same pitcher that he was in 2022. He's just not. You could argue that among starting pitchers across all of Major League Baseball, Sandy Alcantara is the worst. His ERA, 8.47. 8. When I look at bad pitchers, bad starters, I see an ERA above 5, and I throw that guy out as just a below average starter. Maybe he can have a decent game every now and then, but I'm talking 5. Sandy's ERA is 3 runs higher than that. He didn't record a single strikeout. He only lasted 4 innings. 4 innings, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 4 walks. Goes back to command. Look, is he throwing hard? Yes. He's always thrown hard. A lot of pitchers throw hard. Jose Urena threw hard. Jose Urena was not a Cy Young winner. Throwing hard doesn't mean you're a good or great pitcher. It just doesn't. So the velocity, yes, the velocity's there. Everyone can see that. Everyone can look at their TV screen and see 99 miles an hour, 98 miles an hour. And that's good. That shows that his arm is healthy. He's not having elbow pain where he's physically unable to reach his prime velocity. But when it comes to location, that's the X factor. You have to locate. Sandy's a former Cy Young winner, guys. He's done this before. He's been in these situations in which he goes out and just dominates. And we haven't seen a glimpse of that. We've seen good innings, but we haven't seen good starts. That's a big difference. I'll be honest. I don't know if Sandy Alcantara is ever going to regain true ace form. It feels sacrilegious to even say this. But can you blame me? An 8.47 ERA. Every start, I expect a different result. Maybe this is the start. Sandy goes out there and dominates. And he looked good for the first 2-3 innings. And that seems to always be the case, though. Gave up a run in the second, and then the fourth, 5 runs. That's a sign of a pitcher who's just not good right now. And they keep running him out there. Baseball's a mental game. Pitching is a mental game. I have no idea the emotions that Sandy must be feeling right now. Wanting to have that success, the competitor that he is, and just being unable to replicate it and to find it again. That's got to be really, really tough. But in the bigger scheme of things, this Marlins organization, going into the season, Sandy Alcantara was the prize jewel of a potential trade. Who is going to trade for him right now and pay top dollar? Sure, teams would trade for him because they're going to say to themselves, look, it's his first season off of Tommy John. We can get him for the back half of this year. Maybe it works out. If it doesn't, we have a full off-season routine with him, and he comes back into 2026, and we can get him fixed. But that's going to require selling low and settling. You can't settle with the Sandy Alcantara trade because you're just throwing him away at that point. You're discarding your former Cy Young winner. But something has to be done. Whether that is the IL, the phantom IL, you know, we see teams utilize this sometimes where a pitcher's just struggling. He goes on the IL for a little bit, comes back. It's a mental reset. I've seen some talk on Twitter. Move him to the bullpen. Let him close. That's wild to me. That's not going to happen. But something has to change in the next 5 days. Whether it's the regimen he has with the coaching staff, I really don't know how to fix it or even what to say. Because like I said, it feels horrible to even bring up this conversation that Sandy isn't good. What do you mean Sandy Alcantara isn't a good pitcher? No, that he's downright bad. Because that's what he's been this season. He's been downright terrible. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe in which I'm speaking these words and it's not clicking to me. It's in a foreign language. But that's the reality. The rest of this game, what a crazy game it was. The Marlins, it was 6-1 in this one. They were down 6-1. In the 5th inning, they put up 5 runs, and it's all tied up at 6. Then they go ahead, 7-6. Padres come right back, 8-7 Padres. And then in the 8th inning, bases loaded. Agustin Ramirez, big 2-run single, puts the Marlins ahead. Eric Wagman follows with a big hit. It's 10-8, and the Marlins win. Calvin Fauché comes in, gets his revenge from the other night with that Manny Machado home run, and closes the game. The Marlins get out of San Diego with a victory. Agustin Ramirez, man, 4 hits on the day. He homered back in the 5th. Was it the 5th? Let's see. There was so much scoring. No, excuse me. He opened the scoring for the Marlins in the 3rd with a solo homer. It was hit hard, as usual. Well over 100 miles an hour, because that's what Agustin Ramirez does. He crushes baseballs. Ramirez is such a big part of the Marlins' plans. He is an absolute cornerstone player. What a find for the Marlins last year at the trade deadline. What a player Agustin Ramirez early on is turning out to be. We've seen ups and downs, but he's been just awesome. Jesus Sanchez was awesome in this one and in this series. Sanchez homered again, which is really good to see. You want to see that power. He's homered twice in this series now. When Sanchez gets on a roll, he's tough to stop. He can get really hot. And this home run was against a left-handed pitcher, by the way. Which is crazy because historically Sanchez has been bad against lefties. But that's what they need. That's what they need from Jesus Sanchez, because moving forward, maybe you trade him. I don't know where you're going to ship him off to, but if there's some outfield needy teams at the deadline, Sanchez could fetch you a decent package. I mean, just last year they traded Trevor Rogers and got back Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. If there's a team who can pay for a bat and they're willing to pay a little extra, Sanchez could be the guy. Awesome to see him heat up in San Diego. But I'm really just speechless with Agustin Ramirez right now. What he's doing at the plate in so much limited action. I mean, he got called up a decent chunk into the season, and he's still pacing the Marlins in just being the best offensive player that they have. That's really who he is. He's only going to get better. We've seen him hit his rough patches. That's natural. Young players are going to go through slumps. But he always manages to bounce back, find a way to get into a groove, and he's a dangerous batter to pitch to. And we saw that with the bases loaded. There is a lot of personnel decisions that the Marlins are going to have to make. Moving forward, one of the decisions is the middle infield. Xavier Edwards is going to get a couple games down in AAA before he returns. And then guess what? He's going to move to shortstop or back to shortstop. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that right after this. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts. This comment section on the YouTube channel is always open. You can hit me up on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2. The DMs are open. If you have any topics or questions you'd like me to talk about on the show, I'm only a DM, a tag, or a comment away. So feel free to utilize that because the Marlins are our baseball team and we love them. We love this team, win, lose, or draw, even though there's no draws in baseball. And how about this outfit combo? I got for those watching on YouTube, I got the powder blue Marlins quarter zip with the 305 retro wave hat. I don't know if it matches. I don't really care because I love these Marlins. I love repping the gear. Xavier Edwards will be returning as the Marlins shortstop. Otto Lopez will move from shortstop to second base. At least for the foreseeable future, that's the plan. And I just don't understand why. Xavier Edwards is not a good shortstop defensively. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. He's just not good. He's tied dead last with the Mariners' J.P. Crawford in outs above average. So the range, the metric where they measure the range of a shortstop, pretty important. You got to be able to get to balls. You have to be athletic enough and quick enough to get to these baseballs that are hit in the hole and make these plays. -6. It really can't get much worse than that. That's literally dead last. He doesn't have the arm. His arm is a second base arm. It's not a shortstop arm. And yet, for whatever reason, the Marlins say, you know what, we're going to run him back out there at short, put Otto at second. Otto's great at second base. But the Marlins are a better team, or would be a better team, if Otto goes to short and X goes to second. What is so hard to to rationalize about that statement. It's a fact. Just watch the games. Watch how Otto Lopez can handle shortstop and tell me that shouldn't be the shortstop for the Marlins in 2025. So I'm baffled. I really don't. I can't think of any reasonable argument why X should start another game at shortstop. If Otto wasn't on the roster, maybe it's a different story because you put X at short, Sanoja's at second, and it changes the dynamic. But Otto is on the roster, and he's a really good defender. Put Otto at short. It's that simple. But yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm trying to think of a reason to be the devil's advocate. I really can't think of anything. So let me know what your thoughts are. Am I missing something? I don't see it. The bullpen for the Marlins. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be calling at the trade deadline for Marlins relievers. That's going to happen, guys. I wonder how aggressive Peter Bendix is going to be when it comes to trading off pieces. And the one piece that I'm going to specifically talk about is Ronny Enriquez, because he has so much control. I mean, he just made his Marlins debut. He was a waiver claim. He has plenty of time. He's 24 years old, and he's pitched really effectively. Now, technically, he blew the save today against the Padres. He did end up getting the win. Gave up a big home run to, I believe, Gavin Sheets that gave the Padres the lead. But the Marlins as a whole, when you look at their bullpen, I've talked about this before. There's only a few high leverage guys, and they'll mix and match them at any point in the game. And today it worked out because Calvin Fauché was the closer, and got the save. Will you trade Ronny Enriquez if a bullpen hungry team calls you up and you just say, you know what? The offer's too good to pass up. Enriquez could be a really good reliever in the future for many years, or we're just going to strike while the iron's hot and deal him out. And hey, we got a couple decent, good prospects out of it. Great job, great waiver find. I'm of the opinion you don't necessarily rush trading Ronny Enriquez. I really like him. There was a pitch, 2 pitches in this one. And like I said, he gave up a home run. He's not perfect, but overall, his ERA on the year is 2.30. It's not like it's 5 or 6 or 8. Enriquez changeup, 92-mile-an-hour changeup against the lefty. Nasty. Just disgusting. Just darting down. It looks like a fastball all the way. I mean, it's 92 miles an hour, and at the last second, just dives away, dives down towards the dirt. That's a legit strikeout pitch that is going to get some of the best hitters on the planet. The slider, too. He'll throw the slider 90 miles an hour. It's wicked. It's got a lot of break on it, and he throws really hard, too. He's got a ton of induced vertical break. Enriquez is an arm I want to keep around. And I'm going to go on record saying that. I don't think you should trade Ronny Enriquez. And I don't know if they're going to, but it's a possibility because rebuilding teams, the bullpen is always expendable. Anthony Bender is someone I think should be traded. He's quietly having a really good season. His ERA on the year, 1.59 in 23 games. He has 18 strikeouts in 22 and a third. He's 1-3, but he does have a save. Anytime a guy has a 1.59 ERA, he's doing something right. You know, he's not getting hit all the time. He only has 14 hits against him. Now, his control can be a little bit shaky, but such is the control of a lot of relievers. It's not just Bender. I mean, look at Tanner Scott. But Bender's been here. He's a veteran. I think Bender's the ideal, perfect piece to move at the deadline. Maybe you package him with Jesus Sanchez. It was a rough series in San Diego for the Marlins. They dropped 2 out of 3, but they didn't get swept, which is a big thing. They did not get swept. I can't emphasize this enough, that when you're on the West Coast and you got to make that long flight back to Miami, you want to leave there with a victory or two. And in this case, they won the last game, and it was a thrilling game to watch. Hopefully, they can take some of this momentum, move it forward, and just keep plugging along. This team is going to battle. They're always going to fight. I call them the fighting fish for a reason. They got the San Francisco Giants up next at home. The Giants got to make the long flight over. And Edward Cabrera is going to have an opportunity to continue his really great month of May into June. I believe he starts in June. No, I think it's the last start of May for him. But anyway, guys, Edward Cabrera, can he continue this? It's going to be really interesting to see. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate you all for listening, guys. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.